April is National Financial Literacy Month. This month, we are getting all up in your business by encouraging you to make smart moves to ensure your financial health. It all starts with financial literacy and creating smart money habits. Today, Teresa and I speak with Lisa Sakai, a financial consultant who works with clients on bucket list acceleration. Her website is onevisionretire.com. Listen in.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Earrings Off. We want to invite you to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. You can find us on Facebook at Earrings Off Podcast and on Instagram at The Earrings Off Podcast.
Welcome to Earrings Off. I'm Lou.
And I'm Teresa. Let's get started.
Well, hello and welcome, Lisa, to Earrings Off.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with you both.
Thank you. We're going to jump right into the questions, and I'm telling you, I'm so excited to hear about what you have to say about this bucket list planning, right? I don't think I've heard of this before. So totally excited to get to know you and all about One Vision Retirement. So tell me, Lisa, what is bucket list planning?
I'm so happy that you haven't heard of it because it's a new way that I've put together. It's not, once you hear it, it's not that new, but it's to make finance exciting again. Because I often say we forget that money is supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be stressful and everything that we have associated with it. It's supposed to be fun. So bucket list planning came because I was finding that while I work with a lot of women who are, 45 to 16, getting ready for retirement or getting ready for that time where they want some financial independence, I was also working with some seniors who were retiring. And I noticed that when they retired, they really hadn't been able to do anything that they really wanted to do. They hadn't been able to travel to Europe. They hadn't been able to, go buy a Corvette. They hadn't been able to do all this stuff. And what I found was interesting is that they didn't really know who they were in retirement because they just hadn't gotten to experience anything really while they were working. They felt like they had to wait until retirement to do that. And so I would sit there and say, well, if you'd had the chance, would you have done this? Would you have done that? And they said, yes, we would have, because we might have decided we didn't want to do this or that. And it feels like not a waste of money, but it's something that it probably would have been easier actually to do an experience when some income was still coming in, right? Because you could replenish that. Whereas in retirement, sometimes you feel like, oh, I wasted that money, which it's never a waste. It's usually an experience. It's usually you've had some fun with it. Maybe it's not necessarily what you would have chosen to do. And I also found that younger clients were having a hard time saving for retirement because the old rule, which is true, which is, the longer you have to save, the better you're going to be off in the long run. Right? We all tell that to our kids, save now because I wish I had saved. It's true. It's one of those things that are actually true. But the problem is that 20, 30 years from now is really hard to stay motivated. Right. Mm-hmm. I actually read this someplace by a gentleman who does marketing for financial advisors. And he was saying, if we will go, because I know nutrition and stuff, that he said, with hamburgers, if we got the bad effects of hamburgers right away, we wouldn't eat it. Mm-hmm. But because it's prolonged for years and years, building up in your arteries and all that stuff that, is bad for eating a bunch of fast food and all that stuff, we don't think of it. We just go, oh, it's just one hamburger. I'll be fine. Mm-hmm. And it's the same kind of thing that we do with retirement. Oh, I skipped a month. It's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. Oh, I skipped a year. I'll get started next year. That's why resolutions are such a big thing. Mm-hmm. So I found that if I could help women in particular build in bucket list planning alongside their savings so that they were actually checking things off sooner and having fun in their lives and experiencing what their retirement might look like, then two things happened. One, they were a lot more motivated to save, right? Because, and we put it alongside longer term goals so that they all kind of went together. Two, it gives them some kind of purpose. As women, we get very ingrained in what we're doing, taking care of our family, building these amazing careers, just doing everything. And we don't really take time for ourselves and what we actually want. So it helps us actually do some self-care. Even if it's just a spa day or something, something like that. It can be small or it can be big for the bucket list stuff. And it really does help them have a purpose and have a why alongside of it. And I've actually found that some of my ladies that I've been doing this with for a while, they actually don't feel like they need to retire right at 65. They said, well, maybe I'll wait till 67 or 68 because they're having a good time now. They're not having to wait till retirement to have that good time.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
So Lisa, where is the best place to save?
That's a really good question. And I'm going to answer it like every other financial person will. It depends. Right? And it's not just because we don't want to give advice or anything. It really does depend. Some people should be saving towards an emergency fund because they don't have any money saved for emergencies. I always say an emergency fund, as soon as you have that in place, that's your time that you're not living paycheck to paycheck anymore. And paycheck to paycheck is a big issue right now. It doesn't matter if you make $2,000 a month or if you make $25,000 a month. I have clients who make $25,000 a month and they spend $27,000. And they have nothing saved for any kind of issues that come up. So having that emergency fund is really key. But a lot of times we focus on paying off debt and emergency fund exclusively, and we don't start putting it in other places. And oftentimes I'll say, once you get about a month's worth of emergency fund, then you should start looking at, should I put in my 401k? Should I put it in a brokerage account for investing? Should I put it in a CD? CDs are doing pretty well in 2023. So maybe that's the right place. So there's lots of different options that are available. And oftentimes I'll say that we start with one, but we end up diversifying where people end up saving, because each bucket has a different purpose, a different risk, and a different liquidity. And that's the key, is that you want to make sure you have access to your money if you need it, and also have those longer term goals. So like the 401k, the IRAs, those kind of things could be more on the long term side, while you're also saving to things that if something comes up and it's not something you necessarily want to touch your emergency fund for, you can go to other accounts for.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What are some money mistakes every female professional should avoid?
It's a great question. So I would say the biggest one is the mindset that we have. And I'd love to hear some comments from you ladies on this.
Okay.
Because I think with women, we tend to, at least I hear a lot, not all women, of course, there's never an all, right? But for a lot of women, we say we're not good at math. We're not good with money. It's an area that I don't feel real comfortable with. And we kind of make, I wouldn't say an excuse. I don't really call them excuses, but we let fear of not understanding stop us from being involved with our money situation. We let our husbands take care of it. We let our partners take care of it. We let our dads take care of it. I've heard that a lot. I talk to my dad about my finances, which is fine. That's not a problem. But we need to take some ownership and control of our money and not be scared that we might not understand it right away. This is complicated. And we really didn't get the education that we could have for finance. I don't know why we don't get talked to. Our moms don't sit us down and talk to us about money. They just don't,
So I can't tell you what my problem is, because I did have the example of my mom handling the finances in my house growing up, but I didn't get that. And that's
Yeah.
not the same for Lou. She's a master when it comes to
Oh, I love that.
finances. Yes,
Well,
she
the
is.
thing is, it's like Teresa saying, different experiences.
Yeah.
My dad died when I was 3, leaving my
Oh,
mom with 7 kids.
you
But
had to do
Lisa,
everything.
when I tell
Yeah.
you, she was a master at
Yeah.
managing the budget. She just
Oh,
was.
that's awesome.
And so I saw her, being able to handle a household as a young girl. And so that's something that just, I wasn't intimidated by it. My
Mhm.
husband says I'm a bit obsessed about it, and
I
I may
love that.
be, because that's just, I've always sort of known what kind of lifestyle I wanted. I know it
Mhm.
takes money to do that. And what I think uh, some of the challenges with being female and handling a budget is not only that we sometimes are intimidated by it, but it's like with everything else, we put ourselves last
Yeah.
and the
Yes.
money runs out. You
Mhm.
have the best of intentions about what you're going to put there, but if you put yourself last, then
Yes.
everybody else comes before you. So yeah, I
Totally.
learned to be a bit selfish. Like it came off the top, and
Yeah.
I had a female manager years ago, and Teresa knows this story, and I'm sure she broke all types of HR rules by doing this. But when I took the position and she knew my prior salary and what she was paying me, she had a frank conversation with me. She said, "Well, this is what you need to start putting into retirement." And I was in her office thinking she was calling me about something. We were going to talk about the job. And she had financial consultant come in. She made the appointment. She
Wow.
said, because you're just going to start spending this money, you won't even miss it. And I was thinking, this woman is crazy. Who does this? But I tell you, she cared enough about me to say, you know what? You need to make this a priority.
Wow.
And to this day, I'm indebted to her for that.
Can we multiply her and just put her all
I
over
know.
the country? My
I
gosh, that's
I
awesome.
I
Yeah.
know.
And
Oh,
I mean, it's something when you hear women say that they are somewhat intimidated by it
mhm.
when they manage large teams
Yeah.
and budgets and everything else at work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That would be
absolutely.
me.
Yeah, I'm talking about Teresa.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but it's a culture, it's what we've been taught somehow
Mhm.
that no, you can't do this. And actually, yeah, we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I love that story. I think we need more women like that for sure. And
Mhm.
it's definitely, there's a little bit too of a perfectionism that, we as women always want to try to do things the right way the first time. And with money, sometimes it's not always about doing the right thing the first time. Maybe you kind of screwed up a little bit, and it's okay. It's okay. We bounce back, we pick ourselves up. I was
Right.
talking to a friend of mine, and she was talking about her finances, and she's gone through some troubles and personal matters and things. And
Yeah.
she says, I'm just a mess when it comes to finances. I'm so embarrassed. And this woman runs a big company. I mean, she's an amazing businesswoman. And I
Yeah.
said, if this was your business, would you say the same thing? And she
Right.
said, no. I said, well, you would pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and go, well, that didn't work. Let's try something else.
Right.
Right.
And
Yeah,
it's funny, we
sometimes we're
don't do
so
that.
hard on ourselves,
Yeah.
We're really hard on ourselves,
Yeah.
really hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
And so I talk to women a lot about baby steps, and they kind of start to roll their eyes and like, baby steps. Yeah, whatever. I take things on, I get things done. We're women. We can do anything, right? But a baby step's amazing. Like if you actually think of what a baby step is, it's the first time that a baby is independent completely, right? At 9 months earlier, the baby couldn't even lift its head up by himself, by his or herself. And now, they're running around and you're trying to catch up with them, right? A baby step's
Right.
amazing. And I think if we just gave ourselves a little grace and did little things to help ourselves on a financial level, just like we do hopefully with eating, trying to eat a little bit better every day, trying to drink a little bit more water, maybe
Right.
doing a little stretches at our desk so that we're not sitting all day, things like that. that essentially, we would be in a much better place and we'd feel so much better about ourselves in that role, that the confidence and the knowledge and all that stuff will start to come because we've taken these little nuggets that we can do pretty easily and
Yeah.
just started to build up that self-confidence. Like you said, we're really hard on ourselves and
Yeah,
stop
yeah.
that.
And the thing about it, when you're able to take better control of your finances, or it makes you feel a bit more independent, but that also carries over. I found in the workplace, in your career, you don't feel like a prisoner to any job, because you know what? If this doesn't work for me, I got enough where I can float for months until I find something else that works for me. And I think that's a critical point for women
Yeah.
Mhm.
to know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Independence. That's why I call it financial independence. Some people call it financial freedom. I call it financial independence. And that's when you're at that point that you are no longer reliant on anybody else to make decisions for you. You can make any decision that you want to make in your life and be able to be okay.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all really trying to strive for,
Right. And it's a powerful example for young girls to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. So, Lisa, how does someone put together a plan?
Mm-hmm. I think it starts with, I always say that there's two elements that lead to ultimately financial independence, which I don't have to explain because we just went through that. So what financial independence is. So I would always say the two elements that you really have to get clear on a financial plan are your clarity and your awareness of things. And really what that means is clarity is understanding what your why is, why we're trying to do something. That could be goal setting, but oftentimes we got to push ourselves a little bit further than just what are your goals? Because I've been doing this for 12 years and I tend to hear the same goals from everybody. I have completely different people sitting in front of me, completely different lifestyles, completely different areas of the country, completely different careers, all of that. And they all say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I want to retire. I want to have my house paid off. I want to spend time with my grandkids. I want to travel. Like they all say the same thing. And then I push them and I say, well, let's get into it. Let's really talk about travel. Where do you want to go? Why do you want to go there? How is that going to feel for you? Why do you, of course, I understand why you want to spend time with your grandkids, but what do you want to do with them? What do you want to provide for them? How often do you want to see them? That's a big one because people think, oh, I'm going to retire and then I'm going to move to a state that's a lot cheaper, maybe doesn't have income tax, things like that. But if your goal is to spend a lot of time with your grandkids and you're moving to a different state, that might not make sense. It's really getting that clear idea of what those goals mean to you and what they feel like, what they smell like, what they, you go through all the senses with it because it's easier to motivate yourself once you have that really good visual on it. And then awareness is really taking a look at where you are. And that's the part that people don't want to do. That's the part they don't like talking to me about because they're usually upset about a decision that they made, or they haven't done something that they've said that they should be doing for a long time. There's some guilt that's around that area, but it's really just about becoming aware of where you currently are. And oftentimes that's things like looking at your 401k. I don't know how many women I talk to, men and women, actually, I should say, that say, I haven't looked at my 401k in 4 years. And it's like, ooh, we gotta look at that.
And I know it's not doing anything, but I look at least once a week and probably twice a week.
Good. That's good. And that doesn't mean you have to make changes. You just have to be aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had one client who essentially all their money was just cash, and doing that for 2 years because they look at it. Typical 401k, but somehow some mistake happened. So looking at it's important because you could be missing some stuff. And so awareness is really, really a big part of it. Being aware of where you are, being very clear and aware of what your goals are. And then we can really put in those steps to get you to your financial independence. And it's a lot easier to do that. So those are the two steps I walk most of my clients through. And that awareness also, we build in bucket list planning. We build in those self-care elements that we need to do for ourselves to try to make money fun again, so that we're not ashamed of looking at where we are at and understanding that it's a tool for a lifestyle that you really want, not really anything else. There's no greed behind money. There's no, I've never really found a client that's come to me that's been really greedy with their money. They're trying to use their money to have their best life. And that's what money's supposed to be. So that's where I would start with planning, is having really good goals and having awareness of where you are now, because it's easier to put together action steps from there.
You mentioned it a little earlier in the conversation about financial perfectionism. What is that? What is that?
Yeah. So I find that mostly with women, because we all know that men need us to get stuff done. So, so they just do. But essentially with women, we tend to want to take something on. And when we take it on full. I mean, that's it. We're going to do it. We're going to go to the gym. I use a lot of health things because I'm always dealing with my own health stuff. So, go to the gym every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and going to the gym. I'm buying my gym pass and doing it. And we get burnt out because, as Lou said, we put ourselves on the back burner. A lot of times we put ourselves last. And then we make it a personal failure, is probably the word I would say. We didn't follow through with this. We can't seem to stick to an exercise routine. We can't seem to eat the right stuff, and it turns into our problem, because we were trying to be too perfect right away, because we take it on, we do it. This is how we're going to get it done. Instead of just taking little bite-sized pieces. I was listening to a podcast. I can't even remember who was saying this. It might have been James Clear. I don't remember, but somebody was saying, when you want to go to the gym, you actually should just decide that you're going to drive to the gym and don't go in at first. You don't plan on going into the gym. You're just going to drive there. And then the next time you can drive there and then maybe walk into the gym, and then, things like that, those little tiny things. I do know that it was James Clear that said that if you want to do yoga, the first week or two, you should just take the yoga mat out. That's it. Because it gets you in that habit of taking it out and getting prepared to do it. And then you make the decision that you're going to do a minute of standing on the mat. And then after a bit of time, then you do downward dog or whatever it is, and you start to build into the habit rather than trying to take it on. Because really, we're not going to beat ourselves up if we didn't stand on the yoga mat. We're not going to call ourselves losers and a mess because we didn't stand on the yoga mat one time. And it just gives us time to get used to this stuff where we're not constantly beating ourselves up on the things we didn't do.
Right.
Yeah. I think too, Lisa, though, that some of the challenges, sometimes you can get into a situation where you're comparing yourselves to others.
Oh, yes.
And then, no, I don't want to look at that account, because when I think about Anne, she's got all of this money and she's the same age and all of that. And then it makes, but you have to move away from comparing yourself. Nobody, just like you don't know her story, she doesn't know yours and the challenges. So I find, particularly when I talk with women, sometimes that's an issue because, and I'm saying that from experience, because the same boss that was so adamant that I start, she did very well financially. And when I as I got to know her, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so far behind. I am just not doing it. But I had to lose that and just, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and just stay consistent with it, because I compared myself to her and it was depressing because she knew exactly what she was talking about because she started early taking all of this very seriously.
Mhm.
And I just wasn't there. And so I think part of it is we really can't compare. I mean, because if I look at Oprah Winfrey, I'm worse than a pauper. We compare my finances to hers, but that's okay. That's just
Totally fine.
that's not my comparison. That's not for me to compare.
Right.
Just figure out, what you can do and what works, what really is going to work for you. At least talking to people, that's what I see.
I totally 100% agree with you. There is a lot of comparison. I hear it all the time with, it's funny. I hear clients comparing themselves to other clients that they don't even know who they are. Like I don't share my client roster with everybody and go meet each other, and they'll say, I'm sure I'm not your biggest client, but I'm sure I'm not saving like I should, like your other clients are. It's funny how we do that. Yeah, we do it with people that we don't even know. And I go, well, I don't know where you're getting that from. So.
Right, but wouldn't that just be kind of a little bit of a deflection or maybe some insecurity and just kind of throwing it off, not really meaning it, but just and kind of just saying something so the pressure is just not there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That's exactly what it is. And I will actually kind of call them on it. I don't do it in a nasty way, but I go, why do you say that? And then they don't know what to answer.
Right.
And I go, well, you're just as important. I say, and I want to know for sure. I said, is there something that I've done that makes you think that you're not as important as other clients are? And
that's
they
right.
Go, no, that's not it. Well, and I agree with you. It's a lot of another deflection, if we're going to go into that direction, which I think is a good one, is I hear a lot of, especially some of my single female clients that have come out of divorces. Maybe their husband handled a lot of the finances before. They often will say to me, well, you're my girl. You know what's going on. You take care of me. I know you're doing the right thing. I don't understand any of this, but you're doing it for me. And I tell you, that drives me crazy because I want them to have some ownership in it. So I make them read some articles and I make them listen to me. And I say, did you understand that? Can you repeat back what you heard me say? They don't have to be financial gurus, but I want them to have some ownership in their planning.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, like I said, I try not to compare, but I'm going to be honest and very transparent. When you reference a $25,000 monthly income, when you said that, I thought to myself, if I had that, Teresa wouldn't see me for about 6 months. I'd just be gone. And everybody would be wondering what happened to Lou. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
exactly. But they're, but I have, they're generalized because I have some other, I have a couple of clients like this, they're not in as good of a financial independence place as some of my clients who make, $5,000 a month.
And, and really though, I'm laughing, but that's what my mom taught me. It's not what you make, it's how you manage it. And I learned that lesson from her. So,
Exactly.
So Lisa, why is knowing your why so important?
So knowing your why is very important because if we don't actually put some detail around something, like I put, the grandkids thing actually is a really good example. If we don't really know what we want to do with our grandkids, how long we want to spend with them, that kind of thing. And, it's a little hard because they're young and then they're going to get older and things are going to change. We start making decisions based off of things that aren't tied to that, like moving out of state. This happens a ton. People will move out of state because it's cheaper someplace else. And then they're constantly missing their grandkids. So they're driving back or they're flying back. And that's expensive because where are you staying? Most of the time they don't feel comfortable staying with their children. So they're staying, at a hotel and stuff. So now they're not really experiencing any of the travel, any of the other stuff. They're just kind of driving back and forth. And I tell you, it's one of the grandparents, one of the couple is always angry about that. There's always one that gets upset and go, why do we have to go back for every single birthday?
Right.
And so having a really good understanding of what you want your life to look like, even if it changes, which it will, we're different people from where we were 10 years ago, but having a really clear why helps you make decisions better, helps you stay on track, helps you go back to that, let's say somebody wants to go to Bali. I bring this up all the time. I don't have one client that's ever said this. So obviously I want to go to Bali because I bring it up all the time. But essentially, if somebody wants to go to Bali, it's really easy to go, oh yeah, I'm going to go to Bali, and then just leave it at that. And then, you say that for years and years and years, and nothing happens with it. But if I put a feeling attached to it, if I put a real reason of why I want to go there, I want to swim in the water, I want to experience the infinity pools I've seen in pictures, I want to experience the food, I want to, whatever that is, really put some why and emotion and meat behind it. Then it's so much easier to start taking some action steps to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. You touched on this a little bit earlier about with the question about the best place to save, but wanted you to expand a little bit and talk a little bit about, is saving in your 401k enough?
Most of the time, no. Yeah, I mean, actually, most of the time, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Mainly because it depends. Now, I would say it's changed. The landscape has changed dramatically the last couple of years with the Roth element of the 401k. But the issues that we had beforehand was everything was tax deferred, which is great for now. But then you've got to really watch how much you're pulling out in retirement, because there's other elements that that people don't really talk about, like Medicare. If you have too much income, Medicare has an extra tax that they add on. Well, great. Now everything I'm pulling out is tax deferred. Plus you add in some Social Security. That has some tax implications to it, depending on how much you've pulled out of your 401ks or your IRAs or whatever those are. Pensions count towards that. There's lots of other elements that will count towards that. So you might be in a higher tax bracket in retirement than you previously were, because you don't have kids to have as a deduction. Your home might be paid off, so interest is gone. You don't have HSA accounts that you're putting money into. You don't have the 401k you're deducting to. There's a lot of things that kind of go away in retirement that were deductions for you, and you don't have those anymore. So traditionally, the 401k isn't enough, especially it's good to go up to the match. I'd rather people go up to the match than not put money away. But oftentimes, depending on the lifestyle that people want, there's a rule. I kind of go back and forth whether or not this rule's the right rule or not, but they always say 4%. If you can live off of 4% of what's in your 401k after tax, I would say, then your 401k will be enough. But 4%, if you have $1 million, it's 40 grand pre-tax that you're pulling out. That's not enough for a lot of people. It's just not.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it just depends. It depends on a lot of things, but I would say no, traditionally it's not enough. Now it depends on the matches you're getting. It depends on if they give you profit sharing, if they do, all these other things. But a lot of times the one myth that I think happens a lot is we think one product, or in this case, the 401k, is going to be the end all be all for us. And a lot of times it's never one product that does it. There's not going to be one insurance product that's going to take care of everything. There's not going to be one, anything that comes in and saves the day. It's often the best plans have lots of different buckets that we're tapping into, because they have different risks associated with them. They have different liquidity. They have different other things, lots of other things that help round that out for clients.
Okay. So Lisa, what can someone do to get started? What should they be doing?
I think the best thing that somebody can do is have a real conversation with themselves about what a financial goal is for them. And maybe one, I think sometimes many, to maybe start financial that you have to pay off your house, Okay, maybe that's your goal. And the one thing they need to do is focus on that goal, because what happens is, and this happens even with planning with my clients, is, and sometimes they hate me for this and sometimes they love me for this, I don't know, sometimes, but I think this is the way to get it done, is that if there's too many to-do lists, to do tasks, then nothing gets done, right? But if your goal is to, well, let's take something you can get done within the year. So let's say, to put it together, your trust. I've been meaning to do this for years and I need to get my trust in place. Okay. Putting one goal in place and actually taking little action steps to get there is the best way to get started, because you're going to have taken care of something. You're going to feel good about yourself. And then you're going to go, what's next? What's the next thing I'm supposed to do?
Yeah. Rather
Rather than have everything come at you at once, which can happen in this process. I mean, I can tell you, when we come in to financial planning, a lot of times clients will have a laundry list of things that we're supposed to do. And I make them break it down one at a time, because if we can't get one thing done, we're not going to get the whole list done. And sometimes it drives them crazy. But honestly, if we have 10 things we're trying to accomplish, I know for myself, that's really hard for me to keep track of for you. And honestly, you're probably you're going to get done some stuff, but most of the stuff's going to go to the wayside because you're so overwhelmed, because you're working, you've got a family, you've got a life to live. This is not supposed to take your entire life over. That honestly, that's the one thing. So I would say, if you could focus on one individual goal and start to break it down into bite-sized pieces that you could do one thing a week to get closer to that, then you'll be in a much better place by the end of the year.
Okay. That makes great sense. Thank you so much.
Of course.
For sharing that. Yeah.
So, Lisa, we've reached the end of the questions that we had, the prepared questions that we had for you. So we'd like to ask you to share some parting words or advice for our listeners, and include how they can contact you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. This was a great conversation. You had some wonderful
enjoyed
questions.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great. So thank you so much for having me, first and foremost. And secondly, I would say the biggest thing is, when it comes to finance, if you get that pit in your stomach when you start talking, when finance or wealth or money comes up, then I would say, you need to have a conversation with yourself a little bit about, how can we change that feeling to something of gratitude, of feeling like we've got some understanding and some control in that area. That's the first and foremost thing. A lot of times, if we have goals, big, audacious goals that we're trying to accomplish, and we still have a really weird relationship with money, we tend to falter a lot, because we haven't necessarily taken care of, I wouldn't even call it a mindset, I would say the emotions that are surrounding you and your financial situation. And maybe that's just forgiving yourself for something that maybe you made a mistake on, and it's okay. We've all made them, and you got to forgive yourself and move forward. So I would say that's the first and foremost thing that most people need to handle first. So that's my parting words, and I'm always happy to help anybody walk through that. Most of my questions in my getting to know you call is about, your feelings around money and last purchase and stuff like that. So I can kind of get a sense of who you are in relation to your money. So people can always reach out and take a look at our website, onevisionretire.com, all spelled out. There's some resources on the resource page. One of them, if you're kind of interested in the baby step idea, is 15 baby steps you can take to financial independence. And they're little bite-sized things that people can take on that will get them better understanding of where they are with their money and understanding of finance in the world. We didn't even really touch on investing, but that's another area that people shudder once you start talking about it, because they don't really understand it. And so they let that stop them from making the right choices for themselves. So that's a great place. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So happy to have people follow me there. And I post content there every single day. So
Very good.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lisa. Wonderful conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I have to find your mentor and shake her hand or something. I have to find some people like that.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Take good care.
Thank you. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.